We know you've been waiting for this. What's hot? We talk about stories that have all of us talking.
We're joined right now by Tracy Johnson with Tempo Milwaukee. Jeff Wagner is back. So we're talking about girl star Lena Dunham. She's appearing on the February cover of Vogue magazine. But Jezebel.com says she was photoshopped a little too much. They offered $10,000 for the unedited photos and posted those pictures on its website last week. But Dunham is praising the Vogue spread. What do you think? I think that anybody that appears on a cover of a magazine these days is over-edited. They take off weight.
They're all photoshopped.
They take away lines.
Right.
Yeah, nobody looks the way they actually do, and
okay, but
so
is there?
what?
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to ask. I mean, so where does that go? I mean, that was my reaction. So what? This is not a surprise, and I think the folks at Jezebel, in my opinion, really need to get a life. In this particular case, I mean, this gal appears as she is on that HBO show, and whether it's flattering or unflattering. So she poses for the thing, so they make her arm look a little thinner, so they give her a little more of a bust. Who cares? It happens all the time.
Well, I mean, and you can get into the whole issue of body image for women, and they're always seeing people that look a certain way when it's really not that way in real life. But I would argue that's been going on for years. And
they're just making her look a little bit, quote unquote, better for the magazine. That's all.
Well, and you're buying the magazine for the fantasy. You're buying it for the fashion. Half the time I look through those pages, and of course I buy it for the articles, but also the fashion and the pictures and so on. I also think it's a little bit hypocritical that we're talking about this and we're talking about altering appearances, yet every single ad in these magazines is about altering your appearance with makeup, with the Spanx, with all of the doodads. But I think that the silver lining is here that we get to have this conversation. We get to say, be proud of what you look like, be proud of who you are, and if there's any positive that comes from it, I guess that would be it.
All right, I know this is going to shock you that I actually have something to say on this topic, but what I understand is that Lena is someone who just reveals who she is as who she is, and that the fact that she was picked for Vogue surprised people because she didn't fit the typical Vogue person.
But that's good too.
And that was good.
Breaking out of
so
that
they're
mold.
saying, why didn't you just let them be or show you as you are, because that's who she is. So I don't know if she was in on the Photoshop or was just as surprised.
Well, and if you
anytime you take a picture, it's. I mean, even if I hired a photographer to come in and take family pictures, they're gonna. The final picture is gonna be edited and spiced up a little bit. Well, so it always happens.
Well, and the other thing is they're gonna sell a lot of magazines because we're talking about this. And if you actually look at the two photos, there is such little change. This woman is beautiful. There were a couple of little things.
They didn't take 50 pounds off her or anything like that.
They maintained the spirit of who she is.
Right now, Charles, it's not like the Playboy magazines that I know you read, where we know that there's no photoshopping going on at all.
Jeff.
Right?
Woo, train's coming off the tracks. Coming up next, what's hot in our viewers' choice topic of the day.
And again, we're joined by Tracy Johnson from Tempo Milwaukee and Jeff Wagner of 620 WTMJ. Well, today's viewer choice topic: should the federal government issue charges in connection with the death of Cory Stingley? Many on Facebook are saying no, and as you know, the district attorney, John Chisholm, announced about a week ago that he would not issue any charges, and this case is now moved to the federal level. Jeff, what do you think is going to happen?
It's not going to go anywhere. And I mean, here's the problem on the federal level. In order to prove a civil rights violation, which is what this would have to be, you would have to prove the underlying elements of a crime. And already John Chisholm says he didn't think he could prove that beyond a reasonable doubt. And the feds would have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the motivation was because, in this case, the young man was African American. And as far as I can tell, there is absolutely no evidence that suggests that, much less suggests it beyond a reasonable doubt. I understand why the family is upset, but to the extent they're going to get justice, I think at this stage it's going to have to come in a civil lawsuit that they bring. There's no way the feds get involved in a prosecution.
Well, and they've said that they're going to examine it. They're going to, take the time, and I think this is after multiple requests. But, on a day today when we're celebrating Martin Luther King Jr. and having this conversation, I think it just furthers the divisiveness when it comes to talking about race in our community. And so I think we turn this around and look at it as an opportunity to talk about the act of shoplifting and to say, don't commit these crimes, these young people that don't know the difference between right and wrong, and not that this is a natural ramification of that, but just trying to spin it so that there is a lesson learned here.
Well, and look, and I understand that. I've been talking about this a lot over the last few days. I understand the district attorney, and I'm not a fan of our district attorney. He's been getting a lot of criticism, but here's the bottom line. They look at this, they don't believe they can prove a case beyond a reasonable doubt, and so they've made the decision, we're not going to bring charges. Ethically, that is the right thing to do. If you don't think you can prove a case, you just should not bring it, even though I know it leaves some people unsatisfied.
All right, let's go to our lightning round. A tense moment after Sunday's NFC Championship game. Seattle's Richard Sherman lashed out at 49ers' Michael Crabtree in a post-game rant with Aaron Andrews. He called himself the best corner in the game and Crabtree a sorry receiver. He then looked in the camera and said, "Don't you ever talk about me." And that concluded the interview. So a lot of people reacting to that 15 seconds that they heard from Sherman. He has come out with his viewpoint of it today in a very well-written article. Where do you guys stand on this? Should he have just let his actions on the field speak for himself, or did he do the right thing here?
Well, what is that quote that says, "Act like you've been there before"? Now, I understand that he made the game-winning play that's going to take the Seattle Seahawks to the Super Bowl, but what has happened to sportsmanlike conduct? And then he went further in the post-game interview in the press conference to continue to bash Crabtree. I just think he's very unprofessional. He's an educated man. I think it's very unsportsmanlike. And guess what? One of these days, he is going to lose a game and he's going to eat his words.
Well, I think he came across as, I don't know the guy, he came across as a no-class thug. And I think, that's not the face the NFL wants to put forward. I felt bad for Aaron Andrews. I mean, 'cause she, all of a sudden, "Oh, tell us about the game-winning play," and he goes off on this rant. She was going to ask her another question. I could tell, we've all done those interviews. You could tell the producers are saying, "Get this going." No, we're pulling him off because we don't know what he might say next. I don't think he helped himself. I'm not a fan of Seattle. I'm not a fan of their coach at all. I think if this guy is in the embodiment of this, it's why we should be rooting for Denver in 2 weeks.
All right, we're going to leave it at that. The What's Hot discussion will continue online. You can find that page at tmj4.com/hot.